The quarantine beacon fired at 0314 station time, and I was the one watching when it did. I have worked the band array at Sector Watchtower KV7 for 11 years. I have logged atmospheric bleed, survey pings, freight transponders, and the occasional panicked hail from a belt miner who had clipped a rock and wanted someone to know about it. I had never, in 11 years, seen two distress signals fire from the same source at the same moment on two entirely different bands. The first was expected. Station KV7 Row is a Vareth Reclamation Authority research post, 42 personnel, built into the rock of asteroid designation KV7 about 160 years ago. Its automated quarantine system is a standard installation. Containment breach detected, lockdown engaged, distress burst dispatched to the authority's emergency relay on our standard band. I saw the burst go out at 0314:07. I logged it. I flagged the relay queue. Standard procedure. The authority's response fleet would be notified, assessed, and dispatched within 6 hours. That is the procedure. That is what I expected. What I did not expect was the second signal. It appeared on my array at 0314:09, 2 seconds after the first. A different band entirely. A frequency I had never seen carry traffic in 11 years of monitoring. The signal was strong, clean, and coded in a format I did not recognize at first. I pulled the band registry. The frequency was listed as a legacy mutual aid channel, origin classification, pre-diaspora human survey infrastructure. Status: dormant. Last confirmed traffic: 341 years ago. I sat with that for a moment. KV7 Row had been built into rock that a human survey team had tagged 3 centuries before the Vareth Reclamation Authority ever filed a claim on it. The survey hardware, beacon substrate, band emitters, the whole buried skeleton of an old human listening post had been incorporated into the station's foundation when the authority cut the first tunnels. It had never been decommissioned because nobody had thought to look for it. When the quarantine system fired its distress burst, it fired through every transmitter in the station's infrastructure, including the ones that had been sitting dark in the rock for 341 years. The human mutual aid band, it turned out, was not dormant. It had simply been waiting for someone to use it. I flagged the anomaly and opened a query to the authority's infrastructure registry to confirm what I was looking at. That query was still processing when the human fleet arrived. They came out of transit at 0341:52, 27 minutes and 43 seconds after the beacon fired. 5 ships. I had to recount them because the first count seemed wrong. 4 warships in a tight formation, hulls weathered and mismatched in the way of ships that have been worked hard and repaired often, and behind them a 5th vessel, larger, white-panelled, with the running lights of a hospital tender. They dropped into the belt moving with the calm, methodical purpose of people who had already decided what they were doing before they arrived. The lead ship hailed me first. Sector Watchtower KV7, this is TRS Hadron's Mark, responding to a Tier 1 mutual aid beacon, registry code Delta 7 Foxtrot 99er, filed under the survey compact of the 3rd diaspora period. Please confirm the location of the distressed installation and advise on current hazard status. I stared at my console for what I am certain was an embarrassingly long time. TRS Hadron's Mark, I said. This is Watchtower Operator Orith Suan, Vareth Reclamation Authority. The installation in question is a Vareth research station. We have a containment breach in Laboratory Sublevel 3. 42 personnel are in lockdown. Our own emergency relay has been notified and a response fleet is en route under authority protocol. There was a pause of perhaps 4 seconds. Understood. Operator Suan. We received a Tier 1 beacon on our mutual aid band. Under the terms of the survey compact, a Tier 1 code obligates immediate full response regardless of the installation's current administrative status. The beacon's hardware registration traces to survey claim KV7, filed by the Terran Survey Directorate, 3rd diaspora period, and the substrate has never been formally released from compact coverage. Another brief pause. We are already committed. Containment Engineering Shuttle is ready to deploy on your vector. Please advise on the nature of the breach. I want to be precise in this log entry, because precision is what the after-action review will require. I was not panicked. I was not hostile. What I was, in that moment, was entirely uncertain what the correct procedural response was to a situation that our protocols did not appear to cover. The authority's emergency relay had the situation. The authority's response fleet was processing dispatch, and there were 5 human warships sitting in my sector, hailing me on a frequency I had not known was live, telling me that a 300-year-old survey compact obligated them to respond to a beacon that nobody in the Vareth Authority had known was capable of transmitting. I gave them the breach data. It seemed like the most sensible thing to do. The containment engineering shuttle was through the station's docking collar within 9 minutes of my confirmation. The team, 8 humans in sealed environmental suits, carrying equipment I could identify by function if not by precise designation, moved through KV7 Row's corridors with the efficiency of people who had done this before. I was patched into the station's internal feed. I watched them work. The breach was in a bioreactive culture chamber on sublevel 3. I will not detail the specifics here because the research classification sits above my clearance level, but I will say that the containment engineering team did not hesitate, did not confer at length, and did not ask permission before they began. They sealed the primary breach in 41 minutes. They then, without being asked, identified 2 secondary failure points in the quarantine grid that the station's own automated system had not flagged, and sealed those as well. One of them, a short human with a methodical way of moving that I found myself watching, pulled a panel from the wall of the sublevel corridor and spent 20 minutes replacing a relay board that, she explained over the comm, was original hardware and had been operating on borrowed time. The hospital tender had meanwhile extended a docking umbilical to the station's emergency medical bay. The tender's medical team worked through the station's personnel, 42 of them, checking for exposure. 3 required treatment. The treatment was administered without ceremony and without invoice. At 0741:14, the lead ship's commander hailed me again. Operator Suan, containment is confirmed sealed. Your quarantine grid has been restored and upgraded at 3 points. I'm transmitting a full engineering report to the authorities' registry now. Our medical team reports 3 cases of low-level exposure, all treated and cleared for standard monitoring.
No fatalities.
Understood, I said. Commander, I want to confirm. You received the beacon at 0314 and responded immediately. We were 11 light minutes out on a patrol sweep. We received the Tier 1 code at 0325 and went to transit. Yes. I did some arithmetic. You were already moving before I knew the second signal had gone out. The beacon code is automatic, the commander said. Tier 1 codes on the mutual aid band go directly to the duty fleet. We don't wait for confirmation. I see. I looked at my board. Commander, I don't believe the Vareth Authority was aware that the station's substrate was still registered under the survey compact. This may have been a miscommunication in the infrastructure records. There was a pause that felt, to me, entirely without judgment. That happens, the commander said. The compact's been running for 300 years. The registry is large. If you want to formally petition for release of the substrate from compact coverage, I can give you the contact at the Survey Directorate. But that's an administrative matter. Another pause. The beacon fired. We answered. That part's straightforward. The authority's response fleet arrived at 0926:33, 6 hours and 12 minutes after the quarantine beacon fired. 7 ships. By the time they reached KV7 Row, the breach was sealed, the personnel were cleared, the quarantine grid had been rebuilt to a standard that the fleet's own engineering officer later described to me, in a separate debrief, as exceeding the original installation specification by a considerable margin. The Tier 1 Mutual Aid Completion Report had been filed in the authority's own emergency registry at 0801, signed by TRS Hadron's Mark's commanding officer, timestamped, and cross-referenced to the beacon's hardware registration code. The fleet's senior officer, Executive Ann Reith, commed me from his flagship at 0931. Operator Suan, walk me through what happened. I walked him through it. All of it. The 2 signals. The frequency. The survey compact. The 5 human ships. The 41 minutes to primary seal. The upgraded quarantine grid. The hospital tender. The 3 personnel treated. The completion report already in the registry. Executor Reith was quiet for some time after I finished. They were already inbound before you knew the second signal had fired, he said. Yes, Executor. And they didn't ask whether we had authorized them to respond. No, execute. The commander stated that Tier 1 codes on the mutual aid band go directly to the duty fleet. She said they don't wait for confirmation. Another silence. File your after-action log, Suan. Full detail. Yes, Executor. And find out, he said, who in the Infrastructure Division signed off on the original survey claim transfer without decommissioning the beacon substrate? I have been trying to find that answer for several weeks now. The records from the third diaspora period are incomplete, and the survey claim transfer appears to have passed through at least 4 administrative handoffs before the authority took formal possession of the asteroid. At some point in those handoffs, someone had noted the existence of the human substrate and marked it for decommissioning, and at some subsequent point that decommissioning order had been filed in a queue that had never been executed. The order is still in the queue. It has been there for 293 years. I have submitted a formal petition to the Terran Survey Directorate for release of asteroid KV7 from compact coverage. The process, I am told, takes between 4 and 7 months. In the meantime, the mutual aid band is active. I check it every shift now. I am not sure what I expect to find. What I keep returning to, when I sit with this incident in the hours between shift changes and the belt is quiet and the array is running clean, is not the 5 ships, or the engineering team, or the 41 minutes to primary seal. Those things are remarkable, but they are, in a sense, explicable. They answered a Tier 1 beacon. They had the capability. They used it. What I keep returning to is something the commander said, near the end of our last exchange, when I thanked her for the speed of the response. 300 years is a long time for a beacon to sit quiet, she said. When they finally go off, it usually means something. She closed the channel. Her fleet was gone from my sensors within the hour. 42 personnel are alive on KV7 row tonight. The quarantine grid is sealed. The completion report is in the registry. The beacon substrate is still in the rock. It is still registered. It is still, as best I can determine, listening. I have decided not to include that last detail in the summary report to Executor Reef. It does not change the administrative recommendation. And I find, if I am being precise about it, that I am not entirely certain I want the decommissioning order executed. Some things, it seems, are worth keeping active. That is all I have to add to this log. Orith Suin, Watchtower Operator 3rd Class, Vareth Reclamation Authority, Sector KV7.